You're listening to Real Talk with Waz. I'm very excited to have you. Enjoy this episode. Let's just get it rolling.
Sounds good.
Introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about you and what you do.
Awesome. Andrew Provencher. I'm the head football coach for the Manchester West Blue Knights. It's my second year there. Prior to that, I coached football at a lot of different places, including Bishop Girton, Manchester Memorial, West, and then some great experience coaching youth football, including you, at the Manchester South Sabres. And then in my professional life, I own a public relations and government relations firm.
Cool. Yeah, you were like one of the first few coaches. I think you were there either my first or second year I ever started playing.
I think so. I think you were in 7th grade.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Now, was that your
you
first
had that
time
kind of like
starting?
that Justin Bieber hair.
Yeah.
It was
the
great.
bucket.
Beautiful locks. Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't ideal for the helmet.
No, never is. And then you gotta then they cut their hair during the year and you gotta size them down again and stuff. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. But was that like one of your first years coaching?
No, actually. So I had played youth football as a kid and had an injury and then wanted to still be involved with football in some way. And actually, while I was still in high school, I was a coach trainee at the Sabres for under Scott Anderson, who's a great guy, and learned a ton there. That was like my senior year, and went to school. And then when I got back, I was like, man, I really want to still be involved with this somehow. And had reached back out to the Sabres, and Mike Angerami was coaching, and knew Mike a little bit just from like kind of us passing through. And he's like, hey, come jump aboard. And then the next year he moved on, and that was my first year as a head coach that year after. So I think that you were in 7th or 8th grade that year with Angerami, I think. And then saw you again when I went up to high school a few years later, your senior year at Memorial.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I just missed you as the head coach.
Exactly
every
right.
time.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
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 Which one has been the most pivotal in your coaching career? Would you say, like, which one have you learned the most? Coaching what team?
Yeah. So I think you learn something different from every experience, right?
Yeah.
So in my mind, we tell this to our players a lot. You win, you lose, you learn. So you can learn from a lot of experiences. And I learned a lot from that first year at Memorial, where we lost every varsity game, lost every JV game, lost every freshman game. Now that is a hat trick that is hard to accomplish. Learned a ton though, especially because had an opportunity to be calling the defense for the freshman team, the JV game, and then was also up in the box for all the varsity games. So
that's right.
My week was like game, practice.
Yeah.
So it was really to get a lot of reps. Like we always talk about D-backs, they need a lot of reps to get better at being a corner. And being a coach is really similar too. The more reps you get, you start identifying things faster and understanding things better. So to get 3 years worth of reps pretty much in 1 year is pretty amazing.
Were you only there for a year?
I was only there for a year. Yeah. And then ended up
put you through the gauntlet.
Yeah, it was a heck of a year, man. Yeah. And I still love Memorial. So I shout out Memorial on a win on Saturday or Friday. Yeah. With the last second win. So that's awesome. But
that is awesome.
But yeah, no, learned a lot from that experience. And then from an X's and O's standpoint, learned a ton when I was at Bishop Girton doing the defense over there. Some really talented players, some really good coaching staffs, and really big games. So
probably one of the best teams you've taught.
Yeah, I think they were definitely up there. I mean, there was a couple teams there that were really strong on character and quality of the kids and some of the coaching they had received prior. So and some really great individual relationships with some of those players that were great dudes. They're fun guys to be around. So
yeah, definitely
learned a lot there. And when you have success, sometimes it's easier to appreciate the journey a little. So getting a taste of success there and what we were doing, I think helps reinforce your feeling of all right, this is
Yeah, it's interesting because I played for Memorial all 4 years and I started varsity as a sophomore and never won a single game.
Yeah.
That was tough, very
definitely.
tough. But I mean, even going through that, you still learn a whole lot.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of development.
Without a doubt. Yeah. And it's tough. You know, there's, you know, I would say that there is something that's really interesting about players who are in a sport like football and aren't having like on-field success in terms of like wins and losses, because it's not really a sport that it's like not a ton to practice football. It's like not a ton of fun there, right? It's like, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of work all the time. And you have like a big squad. Not everybody's going to play in the game. I mean, you can be being blown out in a game. Not everybody's going to get in.
Yeah.
Some guys got to stay all the way through. And if you're like a senior, like, so, and we had this last year with our seniors who like stuck out a really tough year when we were getting, you know, manhandled by everybody. And it's hard to like stick it through, but also it's like such a life experience of, can you take a lot of difficult situations over and over again? And can you have like pride in yourself and pride in your teammates to like stick it out and keep on coming back and keep it on working? And, or are you just going to let like challenges dictate how you are? So I think there's a lot to be done there. I will say this, man, winning is a heck of a lot more fun.
It's a lot more fun. Yeah. I think with losing though, you do work to find those positives within it.
Yes.
Cause like me, I like that senior, I don't know if you remember, but the last game of my senior year, we played Goffstown and we actually almost won. Yeah. It was like our game to win.
Yeah.
And we still lost.
Should have won that Central game that year.
Even that, even that one.
Chris
too.
was like lights out at QB. Yeah, they just throwing all around. It was like very close at the end. Yeah, it was a good Central squad too. So, no, there are definitely a few, you know, and it ends up being just like a couple things here and there that determine it. But yeah, you know, you can learn a lot from those circumstances, and then I think it probably helps make you. You know, if you dealt with that adversity in a positive way, it probably helps to like build you to be stronger in the future. So
definitely,
and you just learn little things here and there. I know from like a coaching perspective, like I try to learn all the time.
Yeah,
I'm a much better coach today than I was when I coached you in youth. Yeah. In fact, like if I go back now, I'm like, man, we should have won. Like there's some of these games that I'm like, man, if me coaching now could go back then, like I feel like we would have been so much better. But it's like part of it's just like, everyone should be trying to get better at what they're doing. And
what are some of those things that you've learned that you would say, if I could go back, I would do this?
Yeah, part of it is like, sometimes it's like X's and O's, like scheme wise of, hey, we probably shouldn't have been running this or should have been doing this. And a lot of it with the youth level ends up being really like offensive line and like really knowing how to better, you know, coach offensive linemen and get them in a better spot to be able to like identify who they're supposed to block and what block scheme is going to fit the best. And so those are things that, you know, when you work as like a defensive coordinator, you need to understand block schemes because you need to understand what you're going to show your guys. You know, hey, you should be expecting to get a kick out here, or you're going to get a reach block here. So to better prepare your guys, you need to really understand what the offense is trying to do.
Yeah.
So just, and, you know, I wish we could have like filmed all of our games back in youth. I mean, like, I feel like there's so much that
a lot of untapped potential.
Yeah, exactly right. But it's like, just like kind of crazy things too to think about. You know,
it's tough though. Like coaching youth kids, especially that many all at once. Like it's hard to get everybody on to understand. No doubt. You know,
and in high school, most of the kids at the high school team, they want to play football.
Yeah. And they like, kind of have the interest in grasp. They can grasp it a little bit quicker.
You always have some guys on the youth football who, you know, their mom or dad really want them to play football.
My parents didn't want me to play.
Yeah, I know. That's always the thing too. You know, whether it's like trying to convince mom or dad, like, no, it's okay. Like this is going to be fine for them. So yeah, it's an interesting thing. And I love youth football. Like I still catch youth football games. And I think they're, and I like youth football coaches a lot too.
Yeah.
And they get when I meet a lot of high school guys, if they've never coached youth football, they look down on youth football coaches a ton. And it's like super misguided and not smart at all. In fact, like some of the best coaches I've ever coached with or against were youth football coaches, but they have a job that doesn't allow them to be at a practice from 3 to 5. I mean, so they have like a normal, what I'd say like quote unquote, more normal schedule.
Yeah.
So they're not like a teacher or they're not self-employed and they can't make their schedule. So, you know, that eliminates a lot of folks from coaching. Whereas you don't have that in youth. So you have some really great youth coaches who are doing awesome things. And when I have guys apply on staff, I love when they have youth football experience. They've usually had to teach someone how to tackle and how to block and how to do those things in a good manner. And like they know fundamentals and basics. They're not just like trying to come play Madden with a bunch of high school kids.
Yeah.
So I really value that experience a lot of times.
Yeah, I like it because I'm seeing like my younger brother. He played for the Bears 1 year. He got hurt, but he's been playing flag football still.
Yep. Nice.
So he's still in it.
Yeah.
And seeing him slowly progress and watching like that is very, it gets you motivated.
Absolutely.
And I could see it being very rewarding as a youth coach, but also overwhelming.
And I like flag too. So we coach the Parkside flag team. Yeah. And my coaching staff, they all come on. It's good like future recruitment, but also it's just
get the high schoolers into the Bedford Sportsplex.
Yeah, I think we'll see if we get the room in the budget for that. But it's great. I mean, we had like 65 Parkside kids that played flag, and and we have a lot of kids who play. They play flag and then they get to their 8th grade year and they're like, I'm thinking about playing tackle football. Like, is this going to be a good fit for me? And we have a good chunk of guys that we've recruited on our team that were, flag guys who had never played before and are just like learning football. And some of them are doing great, phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I think flag's good. And I don't, there are some coaches who feel like threatened by flag too, or like, tackle football is going to get eliminated by the growth of flag football. And I think that's just like really misguided.
I think flag deserves a bigger spotlight overall, just because it does. Like, there's people that can't play tackle football,
right?
They just like don't have it,
Yeah, I mean, we always say I think there's a place for everyone on a football team.
Yeah,
but not everyone is necessarily going to want to play football.
Yeah,
or have it be their fit. But like, we don't turn anyone away from like athletic ability.
Yeah.
Over the last 2 years, we've cut kids.
Yeah.
But none of it was ever because
you actually had to make cuts.
Yeah. So we chose to make cuts. I call them culture cuts.
Yeah.
So we've cut kids who we feel like are, they're not committed to the program, or they're not showing up, or they're not being good teammates. So, and sometimes those are pretty talented players.
Yeah.
But I think you need to have like goals, and you need to have structure. And if folks aren't willing to like follow those things, they're not really dependable. And if they can't be dependable for me,
team.
So right now we have truly, I think part of our success so far has been that we have a really great group of guys that are all working together and like care about each other and care about the outcome and the process. And we don't really have like, I don't have any players on my team that I'm like, oh, like this kid or that kid.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, I was reading one of the articles recently about the Knights and how you didn't have a lot of kids first starting out. And you guys are just tremendously
we had
expanded.
And, an interesting thing in the story, too, is my predecessor, Coach Bezoin, who I love, and coached me in youth football. I won a state championship with Coach Bezoin.
Wow.
Great guy. He did a phenomenal job at West, too. When he took over, they hadn't won in like 30 games or something like that. So he kind of very much like rebuilt a lot of that program. And the year that he retired, he had a really large senior class that had just graduated. So when I got there, I met with him. I'm like, all right, let's go over the roster. And we counted 13 kids. So we had 13 kids that were returning.
Really?
And I was like, okay, like we're going to have to, do some work. So we called them all into the weight room, all 13 of them. And I was like, hey, I'm the new coach. We need more guys. So like, let's start working. And, me and the other coaches and the players just kind of like pounded the pavement and started talking to guys and sold them on, what we wanted to do vision wise.
How did you do that? Like, were you in the school talking to kids?
Yeah. Like I would stand in front of the weight room when people were leaving, going past the gym, and I would just start pulling guys over. And I'm like, hey, you playing football this year? And they'd be like, nah, I'm not going to play football. I'm like, why not, dude? And then I just almost like I did it really similar to what a salesman would do in like a Salesforce. So I had like a spreadsheet, and I would meet a guy and I get his name and he'd, say like, here's like my school email or whatever. And I'd like literally start a spreadsheet of contacts. And then you'd email? I would email them, and then I'd be like, hey, come to the weight room. And then I'd hit them up again. They come to the weight room. Then it's like, all right, once I get them in the weight room once, then I'm going to follow back up with them within like 24 hours, be like, hey, how'd the weight room go? And a lot of it was like very personalized, individualized approach on each player.
That's really good.
So I had like 180 contacts that I made that turned into like 50 football players that first year. And then this year we have like 65. And I'd love this to get us up to like 80.
Yeah.
But we have, it's almost like a little under 20%.
You keep doing that, I'm sure you will.
Yeah, well, a little under 20% of the male population at West plays football.
Wow.
So like, the school's not that big.
Yeah.
So, we're, so it's exciting and they love it. And like last year, almost 80% of our guys had never played football in their life.
Wow.
So it was, brand new.
Yeah.
Brand new.
That's when you value those youth coaches even more.
Big time, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So that was, we took plenty of licks, but, like win, lose, or learn, they learned a ton. And, it's pretty cool to start the season off 2-0 and to have like a lot of those things click. And we're going to be heading into like some really tough games coming up, but there's already a lot of, I think the good energy and
a lot of
momentum.
camaraderie.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what matters. That's really cool that you did that. Cause like I feel like there's head coaches that wouldn't go above and beyond like that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's like a dream. It's been like a dream scenario for me because it's cool to have your own program, but it's also, I want to do it there too.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And, when we got...
Now, why there?
Well, because I think that, they've been around for 102 years. They've never won a state championship. Mm-hmm. Since Bedford left, the program's been, up and down.
Yeah.
Had a lot of, struggles. I think participation levels were pretty low. I mean, at one point they were kind of like, 30 or so guys, which is not like uncommon in D2, but it's really hard to be successful when you have 30 guys. So, by having 60 something, we have a freshman team, we have a JV team, we have a varsity team.
That's
so
good.
These like everybody's getting reps, and that makes everyone better.
Yeah.
So those are the things that are, it's really gratifying to see. And I think from the player perspective, they like, putting in a lot of work and then seeing positive results out of it too.
Yeah.
Which you don't always get sometimes, but it's cool to have those things come together.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of those kids look up to you though, because
I think they believe in the vision that we've been telling them about, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, if you do this long enough, we do the example of we tell them that the be the bamboo is the line that we say.
Be the bamboo.
Be the bamboo. Bamboo, when you plant bamboo, it will be underground sometimes for up to like 5 years. And then within the 5th year, it can grow something like 80 feet within 5 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So like the bamboo's growing the whole time, but you don't necessarily see the growth. And like, player growth is sometimes explosive. Mm-hmm. So everyone always thinks it's like Madden, where like your guy does the off-season training and then he goes from an 81 to an 82 and then he's an 84 and 85. But that's not really how like player progress goes. Yeah. And really like progress in most things in life. That's not really how it works. Like you don't just keep on working harder and you get better and better on a scale. It's usually you work, and then you have like explosive growth. Yeah. So if you're not watering and nurturing the bamboo for those 5 years, it's never going to sprout. So you have to like put in all the work to get it to a point where you can achieve your explosive growth. So we tell the guys a lot, like, hey, like be the bamboo man. Like you're not, it's not going to happen overnight. Like you don't know where you are in the scale right now. Like you could be year 4 or 5, like your next game could be your bamboo game. So like, you don't know when it's going to be, but you got to just keep on like nurturing it.
You should get like every kid that scores their first touchdown a little
be the bamboo. Yeah. I'd be like running out of money because we had 7 guys in the end zone last game.
Oh yeah. You guys blew them out. Huh?
Yeah, it was a good game. I think the cool thing that we got is that this team's really selfless. So they have
that's good.
I think the ball was going around everywhere. A lot of like I said, we scored 7 touchdowns and 6 different guys got in the end zone for that.
Wow.
So just a lot of different guys catching the ball or running the ball. And I think from like a defensive perspective, it makes it difficult to deal with us because we have a lot of different guys who can, it could be their night that night. So, but it takes a special type of team to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I know that it might not be your night that night.
Yeah.
Like it might be somebody else's night.
Yeah. Cause sometimes you get those selfish players and, that could ruin the game for you.
Absolutely. Or someone's like, I'm going to check out of this game because, we're up big and someone else is the one who's scoring today, or they've only thrown 1 ball at me. So I think we got a pretty special group in that. it's also a lot easier to do all the right things when you're winning. The big question is like, can you do all the right things when you're facing adversity and when you're going against difficult teams and hard situations? And
I witness it even in flag football because I still play. And in the men's league, it's like when teams are winning, they're talking shit, they're stuff, and then they get smacked sometimes. You know,
absolutely.
It's like you're quiet. It's
no
like,
doubt. Yeah,
I'm big on being just even keeled, like through and through.
Yep.
And let the work show.
Yeah, it's a great approach, and I think that's one of the things we try to tell our guys is, we always say, like, don't get too high, don't get too low. You want to be kind of like middle of the road. And that doesn't mean you can't be like excited when you make a big play. Like you want to be excited. You want to like have energy in what you're doing. But, you want to try to keep yourself balanced. Don't just like, because then you get these, we say they're like waterfall moments where you give up a touchdown and then they kick the ball off and you fumble on the kickoff. And then they throw a fade and they score. And now you're down, 14 points in 30 seconds. And we did it a ton last year. And teams that aren't very good do it often because like the one bad thing turns into another. And then you're like drowning. So like, how do you just move on from that and then like collect yourself? And football is so much momentum based, right?
It really is.
Like you score and then everyone's feeling good. And then there's like a big hit. And then now it's like, you just feel it. And it's
the stadium plays a role
absolutely,
in it.
Yeah. So it's just like, and you just, everyone's juices are flowing and you're going great. And then you need to find a way sometimes, like when you feel the other team has that momentum, like how do you stop it?
And that like, it goes back to like, playing sports. There's so much you can learn from it, regardless.
Sure.
Because you got the team building, you got the persistence. Like the whole bamboo analogy, that's literally my life because it's like, for however many years, I really wasn't doing a whole lot. It was only the past like year or two where it started to start clicking. And I'm still not even fully grown yet.
I know. That's what's like the journey is obviously amazing too, right? So it's fun to like just be part of it. But I think that one of the neat things about football that is similar to life, and this is, I guess, true for many team sports, but I think like the relationship aspect is really important.
It is.
So I think like Chip Kelly, when he got hired at UCLA, he says like the three most important things are friendships, championships, and relationships. And that's like what football means to him. And there's like a lot of truth about that. So you have like friendships with the people that you're playing with, relationships with your coaches, and then hopefully you're fortunate enough to like be in a championship scenario. But those things are all huge. I mean, there's a lot of the success that I've had in my life I can like chart back to people or relationships or folks that I've met in football in one way or another. And one of the examples I always use, my wife owns Granite State Escape. And our original location was on the corner of Maple and Valley. And there was no escape rooms in the state of New Hampshire when she was trying to open. And we were going to a lot of property managers and saying like, hey, here's the idea that we have. This is what we want to do. It's, a couple other states have it. We think it's a good idea. We want to try it in New Hampshire. And we were young and they were like, no, like I have a space available. I won't rent it to you because I don't believe in the plan. And a property manager who was associated with the Sabres, like knew me, knew my wife, like believed in us, trusted in us, and vouched for us to get the original location. So we probably don't we don't start Granite State Escape if we don't have a relationship from somebody in the youth football world, which is crazy. But it's just kind of, there's a lot of, I have so many stories that are like connected in that way. And I think that's what's special about team sports and youth sports is you can have these relationships for a long time. Like I still see guys that you play football with sometimes,
and I'm still cool with all them that I played with. Right. And, it is cool to see because it's like, would I've ever been friends with them if I never played football? And even like, I've noticed like I've gotten like this second hit of it by playing flag football because I really got back into it like heavy, and I'm just meeting new people, making new connections. Like people really support me in my business. Everyone supports each other in that place. And it's just something else. It's really cool to see. Yeah, and you're in such like a networking business too, right? Yeah. Where there's like so much, so much about what you do is about like being out there and talking to people and referrals and stuff like that. So yeah, it's just like those are great, life connections and experiences. But like I don't think anyone
would be shocked at your success because you've always been like a really dependable guy. Even when you're a little kid, like, you know, dependable kid, you're always at practice, like always working hard, always like could take coaching. You know what I mean? So I think those are all qualities that, like, I don't think anyone's surprised by you being successful. I think that's awesome. I
appreciate that.
Right? And it's like high, you know, no one rises to low expectations. So I think there's always been high expectations there. So I think it's like, you're doing awesome. Like, it's so cool to see, like, that
I appreciate that.
I'm on your podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's a full circle moment. It's cool though. 'Cause like you know, when you're in the thick of it, you don't think of, you know, like those moments like back in football. It's like, when you do, it's very, you know, heartfelt. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, this person actually made a bigger impact than they think they did in my life. Right.
Yeah.
Because it's like that little amount of time that you might have coached me in football might have made me into the person I am right now.
Sure. Yeah. You know? I mean, it's like humbling to, you know, think that you can have an impact like that, which is awesome. And, you know, I think that everyone coaches football for different reasons. And I think, like, selfishly, one of the reasons I've always coached football is like, I love the game, but more than love for game, it's always been just a great way to like be connected with like people and youth. And you know, I think that it's been my medium to do that. And I love football, but it's like the relationship aspect of like working with young people. That's always been like it's been like the cornerstone of like, you know, why I coach. And I think a lot of my coaches on my staff feel the same way. So we care an awful lot about football.
You dedicate a lot of time to it too.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things, like, I guess one of my qualities, I can't really like, I don't know if I can swear on this podcast. But
you're fine.
I can't really half-ass anything. Yeah. So like if I'm in, like I'm in. So when I try to get into something, I try to know that I can get into it at a point where, you know, I can be fully committed to it. So like at West, that was, hey, we got to feed these kids more. So we did team meals where we do meal, like, I mean, you guys did like pasta dinners a lot of times at someone else's, right? And that just wasn't happening consistently enough. So I was like, all right, we're just going to take that in-house and we're going to feed everyone after practice on Thursday. And
so you had Dave's Hot Chicken.
Yeah, Dave's Hot Chicken came. So we've been like, and there's a lot of folks that have been wanting to help us and support us in that. So, you know, so now we feed them all on Thursday, and then we make sure they get sandwiches on away games. And then we thought we wanted to improve the experience at the football games. So we built a locker room for our guys out of a shed, and we got concessions back at West. So it's like, we're kind of like, I see it as like a holistic approach. All these little things add to the overall value of it. And then, you know, we had our first home game this year. I had like more people there than I think I've ever seen at the stadium. You know, you can smell a burger getting cooked. There are kids playing, you know, throwing the football around on the side of the grass. It's like all those, like, when you think of like a high school football experience, it felt like a high school football game. And it was great that we won too. But all those things, like, they all connect to the school and to the community and all those. So we've been super fortunate to have so many people that have been supportive of us, and a community that really wants football to be successful. So, you know, we're just, you know, one day at a time here trying to keep it going. Yeah.
And that's like big picture. You got to kind of step back and really think about all that stuff.
Yeah. And that's not all, like, you know, it's not all reach blocks, right? Like there's a lot of other things that go into like the whole feeling of what it is to be like a football team. So we're really proud of like our players, especially, and coaches, and, you know, Principal Deshard at West is phenomenal. And our AD, Mike Cotter, is a great dude who's been just like super supportive. And
it's good to be around people that are helping.
Absolutely. Have shared vision and goal. So, and folks that aren't afraid to like roll up their sleeves a little bit, you know, and get to work. Yeah. Cause it's so easy to just like complain about everything. And it's so much harder than just go do something about it.
It was, so I almost coach assistant.
I remember
coach
you saying this.
Memorial.
Yes. Yeah.
And I went there, I met with all the new coaches, and I felt this guilt because I felt like I couldn't commit 100%. Like you said, I don't want to half-ass anything.
Yep.
And I felt like I couldn't commit the time to them, because it's like,
I mean, it's definitely a time commitment. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But I think there's like, you know, there's different layers too. I think most coaches, I won't speak for everyone, but I think most folks are like, hey, tell me what you can do. And then if you can commit to what you're telling me you can do, like, there's a role for you and a way for you to help us. So we have a couple coaches who are saying like, hey, you know, I can't, this is a day that I can't do it or that. And we're really big on family. So like, if I have a coach that comes up to me and says, hey, my son is playing college football and, you know, I want to go support him on that day. Like, yeah, man, go support your son in college football. Like, that's awesome. Like, so like, we have a big enough coaching staff where like, you know, we can survive someone not being there. So I think a lot of it ends up being just like being honest about expectations, but you should definitely go into coaching in some variety, because it's
at some point, I think
awesome.
it's going to happen. It was more so, you know, everything started clicking with the business. And I didn't know how much it was going to take of me. And to be honest, it was probably the best thing I did, because I was burnt out this whole summer. Just, you know.
Well, it can be a lot too. And like, success can be a lot to manage and handle too. So, and I mean, no one knows you better than you, right? So like, trust your gut. And it sounds like you made a good decision. I
think eventually I will go down that path, though, for sure.
You should, it's
because I do appreciate it. And I like, even just, you know, helping my younger brother grow up. That alone, it kind of has the same aspect.
Yeah, he's got a little speed. He looks like a little faster than you are, though. He's got a little more speed than you do.
Not yet. I told him, I said, all right, every birthday of yours, we're going to race.
Love it.
And we're going to do that until you beat me.
Oh, man. I think I give him a couple more birthdays and he's going to catch you.
Okay. I don't know. I think
because I don't know how much faster you're getting right now. You think you're getting faster?
I am.
Really?
I'm training for a half marathon.
Good for
so
you,
I
dude. That's
actually
great.
have gotten a little faster. The guys at flag football were like, those 3 milers, those are working.
They're getting you? Yeah.
They got me playing rusher now. So it's like, I'm getting in there.
The old, what was it? That was the night blitz, I think, back in the Memorial terms.
Night.
Outside dog, right? Yeah.
We had some funky names for this
that's right,
for the defense.
Yeah, coach had it all it was all built around like some sort of like night and like all Crusader style.
Calls, like a video game type.
Exactly.
That was fun. But I wanted to ask you, what are some common characteristics you see amongst the team leaders or the captains? Like, what sets them apart?
So I'd say, I'll give you an example of like some of the best captains I've been around. And I'd say this, like, you don't have to be a captain to be a leader. And there are some really good leaders on football teams who aren't necessarily captains. But I think that some of the qualities they'll have, like one of the best one is they love football. Like they love playing football. And it sounds like something so simple, but like some of the best guys I've been around, when they're on the field, they're just like they're heaven.
All in. Yeah.
They're like they're smiling, they're laughing. They just like love everything about it. And that is super contagious when you're playing with someone like that, because they're just like having such a good time. It's hard to like even be heady or like get in your head about it. It's just like you want to play with that person. So they're very I'd say the second one is they're very authentic. So you can see sometimes a person, and there's different types of captains too, right? There's the guy who's just, he shows up, he does his work, he like lead by example kind of guy. And then there's some people that are more like your rah kind of guys.
Yeah.
But you can always like, players are so good at knowing when the guy who's not really the rah guy, like tries to take on that role. You know what I mean? Because he just comes across like he's like, you're like, oh man, like, I don't know, dude. So, and when people are just like authentic to themselves, whether it's playing or coaching, those captains usually like bring a lot of like accountability to what they're doing. And then also I think players respond to them because they're not trying to be something they're not. And then you do have the guys who are like rah guys. And they're usually sometimes they can be like heart and soul guys. And I think that there's just being like authentic to who you are and what your personality is leads to be a good captain. And then the most important thing for any good leader or captain is they're dependable, right? So they're like on practice all the time. They care about younger players. They say like tradition never graduates. And we in our locker room, we have on every block, we write the names of all the seniors from the year when they graduate. And, we're hoping in many years that you have, many layers of stone with all these different seniors. But I think it's important for everyone to see like who are the people that were coming there before them. And I think it would be something special to have like a senior from last year's team who were on the sideline for our game before, when they come back in 4 years, when they graduate college. And they're watching us play in very meaningful games at the end of the season. And they know that, they had an impact on those younger guys, and they have ownership in the team going forward. And really good teams and good organizations, like, people feel invested in the outcome that's happening, even if they're not directly touching it anymore. But
that's true.
And a good captain, like, cares a lot about the freshmen. You know, they're not like harassing freshmen. They're trying to make them better because they know they're going to graduate in a year, and that freshman's going to have 3 more years with the program.
Yeah.
And like, we tell our captains, be the leader or the mentor that you wish you had when you were a freshman.
Yeah, I like that.
If you get that, you know, then you feel like invested in that person and that team and their future success. So those are, like, I think for me, like, leadership and captain qualities, those are the ones that are just, like, absolutely critical for good ones.
That was really good. Yeah. I experienced that with the Memorial. It was tough because towards the end, when you kept losing so many times, people kind of gave up and lost that love for the game. And it was almost like we were trying to lead the seniors as well as the freshmen. Yeah,
which is really tough. And and there's a lot of you know, I feel like you talked about, like, things you pick up from every season. There's so much that I learned from that year.
Yeah.
Just from, like, the difficulty of it and knowing a lot of the seniors, because I had either coached them in youth or had been around them or played against them. You know, it's tough, and there's a really good group of dudes. So it's always tough to not see, like, the on-field result be what you want it to be. But I think that there's something to be said to having to lead in difficult scenarios too. So, like, Nick Saban, I think he had a quote, and I'll paraphrase it. It was along the lines of, if you want to be a leader, you have to be used to making difficult decisions. If you want everyone to like you, sell ice cream. And I think there's something true about that. Like, being a leader sometimes is having to do things that is tough and have to make hard decisions. And people aren't going to necessarily like you because of some of those decisions sometimes because you're leading. And, you know, if you can't do that, it's hard to be a leader. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of truth to that. And I think if you're trying to lead a group and you know what the right thing is, and they probably know what the right thing is too, but it's just a heck of a lot easier to, like, throw your hands up and give up, or, you know, blame this coach or that coach or something like that.
Or easier to be quiet.
Or be quiet and just be like, I'm going to coast here for the next month.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's such a disservice, like a personal disservice to yourself.
It is, yeah.
And because it's, you know,
it's untapped football potential.
Like, it's football. Like, dude, you guys still go out there. Yeah. Like, I tell my guys all the time, I'm not going to tackle anyone this year, right? I'm not going to block anybody this year. I'm not going to do anything meaningful on the football field at all. I mean, players win games, 100%. I'm, like, a big believer of that. We try to get them in the best situation to be successful, but it's a player's game. Players are going to win. Players are going to lose.
It's good to emphasize that.
Yeah. And like, if you want to just give up, like, dude, you still got to go out there. And there's like some 300-pound kid from Exeter who's not giving up, and he wants to smash you on the field.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's probably worth everyone's best interest for you to
at least try,
show up and try and keep on doing your thing.
Yeah.
So that's, it self-corrects, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you're coasting through it.
Absolutely.
At that point. And it's like, that's a long season.
Tough sport to coast through.
Yeah, tough sport to coast through. You're going to get hurt.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not like, you know, you're a little lagging behind in soccer. Yeah. So, like, you know,
but even life in general, if you're coasting in life, eventually you're going to get popped.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? No, you know, one thing that we talk about, you know, like with attendance, like getting to school on time for our guys. And it's a big emphasis from us, and then a big emphasis from the school. I think the district as a whole is like making sure people are getting to school on time and they're, you know, attending, which seems like a pretty reasonable ask. Yeah. And, you know, I'll talk to players sometimes and I'm like, at some point you need to wake up and decide, like, I'm going to get to school on time and I'm not going to let any other barrier, like, get in my way.
You're going to take control.
But, like, you have to, like, you want to be an adult. You want to be treated like an adult. You know, you want to be, you know, you're going to be 18. All right, dude. Well, then wake up, put your big boy pants on, get to school on time. In fact, get there a little early so you can eat breakfast there.
I think football teaches kids that the best.
I think so too. I think one of the reasons why I think it does it the best is because there's like a contact environment to it. I really think it's like, you know, nobody.
And the training.
Yeah, exactly. You're nonstop training. Yeah. You're in the off season. You're in the weight room.
Yep.
And these are all things that are delayed gratification, right? So it's not like you just go to the weight room one day and you work out one day and then you get stronger.
Yeah.
You know, you got to do it all the time.
And then you got to go through the double session.
Exactly.
Like,
and you got to do double sessions.
Like, when's the first game?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. And then you're like, oh, we got a jamboree. And then it's first game. And then all of a sudden you're 9 weeks into it and you're like, what just happened? This thing just cruised by. But yeah, I mean, it's you have to do a lot of legwork in the front and not get in the end. And there's a part of me that also I have so much respect for players who, you know, maybe they're not starting. Okay. And, you know, there are guys who will play 4 years of football and there's scenarios where they don't play a varsity game. That's tough to do.
Yeah.
Really tough to do. But you got to really respect someone who's, you know, putting it in all the time, working really hard. Maybe they don't have the, you know, maybe their role isn't one that fits into the season or that game or the varsity process. But, you know, for them to put that energy and effort forward for their team to be successful, you know, whether it's on scout or whether it's just like being another guy who's dependable, that's like says so much to someone's character to be able to do that.
I agree.
And it's tough. You know, it's tough to like, it's tough. Not everyone gets in on senior night, right? Not every senior plays on senior night sometimes.
Yeah.
So
there was a couple kids when I played that were like that, where they played the full 4 years. They didn't really get all the playing time.
Yeah.
They did get out there on senior night. Which
is nice.
For.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true. Like they go unnoticed too.
Absolutely. It's hard and it's hard to do and it's hard to like go through it. But, you know, I just feel like anyone who's willing to commit to something and to see it through all the way, there's going to be value that they're going to glean from that experience.
It's like the iceberg analogy, you know, you only see the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely,
but
right.
They put all that time in.
Absolutely. And I think if like, you know, I was never a great football player by any means. Never.
Do you think the average football coach was never a good football player?
I think you got to break. It's a breakdown. I'm in a minority of guys who were like truly bad football players.
Yeah.
But I think there are plenty of you have some coaches who are like were studs.
Yeah.
Right. And they love talking. Like just ask them about it. They love telling you about how good they were. And I think there's probably plenty of guys who were okay, and their memory, their recollection of their playing days was probably a little bit better than what it actually was. Yeah. But I think there's something unique about a perspective of, I think sometimes some coaches, and a very big generalization here, there's some coaches who were really good at football who struggle with why someone can't do the things that they could do.
Yeah.
So they're like, you know, you got to, you know, split the double team and do this. It's like, yeah, man, like that's really hard to do sometimes. You know what I mean? Like this kid's not you. So like, how do you coach him in a way that's not coaching yourself, right? Like, how do you coach him in for his unique way?
Yeah.
So I think that's a perspective that I think's always been beneficial to me, is that I've always just been more of like a student of the game, trying to learn like different techniques to teach people in different ways. And I don't want anyone to play like I did.
Yeah.
I want them to be a lot better.
I could see it. I could see it being hard though. Yeah. Like if you were really good at a sport, you almost have to become the student again.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
that's tough.
It's like a step down.
Right. And you know, well, this isn't, or you have coaches like, oh, this is not how we used to teach it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes
got to adapt.
Yeah. You adapt, you learn like different ways, or maybe there's a different technique that ends up being better, or maybe some of the things you're doing before were better and we've adapted in a bad way, but you don't really know that unless you're like digging into it and you're in the off season and you're just like, I love going to the coaching conferences or clinics. And, you know, I love hearing from guys who do it differently than me, or teach it differently than me. And, I think like one of the best things about coaching is how do you explain the most information in the clearest way, in the simplest terms. And the better you can, if I can tell someone how to cover a wheel route and I can do it in 4 words instead of 6, I think I'm going to end up coaching them a lot better if I can get the same concepts across. So I think that anytime I hear a terminology that I like, sometimes I'll tell the coach, like, hey, we're going to call it this now, because I think there's an intuitiveness about it. Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I think it connects with players, because we can be long-winded. Nothing's worse than the coach. It's like you go to Indies and the coach brings all the kids around and he's like talking to them for like 15 minutes. And then like you do like 2 reps and then they blow the whistle and the Indies are over.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like
No, we want to do them.
I'm not here to get lectured, man.
Reps,
like, let me get some reps. Like, I want to just like, can you talk to me while I'm doing it?
Yeah.
So I think that's something we try to avoid as much as possible. Because players want to play too. Yeah. And they can only like listen to you so much.
Yeah.
They want to go do something.
That's true.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of?
Well, without a doubt, most proud of my wife and 2 kids. They're hard to ever pass that, and just, I'm real, honestly, for me, I get so much joy out of seeing all of you all like growing up and doing things and, in different states and doing different things in different professions. And, it's just it's so great, man. They, an old coach at Michigan used to say that they would determine the value of a team after like 10 years, like what kind of, husbands and fathers and, what do the players look like in 10 years? And like, when I look at that Memorial team, like 10 years later, I look at a lot of those guys and it's like, man, that was a pretty successful season. Like you got a lot of guys that are doing some pretty awesome things and that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So like, I think that there's a lot that we can glean from the outcomes that these players are doing, what they're doing professionally and, what kind of, mentors and fathers and stuff they are. So I just get a ton of joy out of that and seeing, everyone going off and doing different things. And it's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And do a lot of people reach out to you?
Yeah, I still get quite a few folks, or I'll run into them a lot of times. Like, I love when the player, like I'll see someone and I like definitely remember coaching them.
Yeah.
And maybe like the name's not right there in this old brain of mine. Yeah. And then they're like, Coach Provencher. I'm like, oh man, it's like so happy you said something because, like I didn't want to just come with some random dude and be like, with the assumption that I coached you.
Yeah.
So like whether I run into someone at the store or I always think it's cool when we'll have, former players of mine who will come and watch a game at West or something like that. And they come down to the field afterwards. Oh, Coach, you guys did great. Or it's really special. It's cool. Yeah. It's nice to kind of keep in touch with everybody. Yeah.
That's good. Are a lot of the like old seniors from that big class like showing up to the games?
So we've had a good chunk of those guys from the year before I was there are in college or playing some sort of college football. And from our seniors last year, we only had 8 seniors, and I think 4 of them were at the game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
so
that is cool.
Having them come back, and I mean they went through. It was a tough year last year. We had lost. We've already scored more points in our first 2 games this year than we had all of last year.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. So it's I think they're coming back and they're like, whoa, man,
like, yeah, it's working.
This is great. Yeah. Like, where was this last year? Yeah. I'm sure what they're thinking.
Make sure you keep them level.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's like, keep on, man. Like, we got a long way to go here.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's exciting. It's always great to keep in touch with those seniors. I mean, you end up having the best connections with a lot of the freshmen and sophomores that are coming on when you first get there, right? So like they'll be, hopefully if I'm fortunate enough to be there for the next, 3 more years, I'll have a freshman class that started with me.
And they'll be seniors.
They'll be seniors. So that's pretty cool and that's really special. Yeah. And I still keep in touch with a lot of the guys that were at Bishop Gert when I was there who I came in there freshman year and then, now I got to coach them in like the Chad All-Star game or something like that.
That's cool.
And that's really neat to see them come full circle.
Yeah.
And you have to be somewhere for a while in order for that to happen. So I'm excited to get that opportunity at West. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. You're doing a lot of great stuff.
I appreciate that. You as well. And it's been so, your journey's been a fun one too. It really has from youth to high school football to, odd jobs and odds and ends. And then you have like the professional career.
You gave me a lot of opportunities, as a kid growing up, even outside of football, which I really appreciate. Like, we had battle games.
Yep. Yeah. Battle games.
You had me knocking on doors.
For a solar company. Yeah.
That got me to where I'm at, if anything.
Yeah.
That was a learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's so hard. It's so hard to find dependable people. Yeah. And that when you find dependable people, opportunities find themselves a lot of times, right? So so it's been cool. I mean, we had whether it was like staff at battle games or it's been like odds and ends or different things that come in. We always want to, with the relationship thing, I think it's good to, like just nurture young, guys and girls to be into like a professional world. And I've been so fortunate about having so many mentors of my own and so many folks that have like thrown me a bone here, or done this or done that, you know, it's just great, you know, and you want to kind of like pay it forward in the process. So, you know, you always end up getting back like way more than you give out, you know? So it's just, I think my mindset at least has always been, you know, try to be involved with people and help people and try to just be a good dude as much as possible. And then,
you do that.
and then good things come around at the end of the day. Yeah. So yeah, we'll it's been working out pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate you, and I think you are a great role model.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
And the West has a good football coach.
Go Blue Knights.
Sure. Go Blue Knights.
There you go.
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. All the luck in the world to you, and keep grinding.
Thank you.